Let's talk about shadow work. Shadow work is the process of integrating rejected parts of the self. So, the self is this multifaceted being. The self is the totality of experience. And as we grow up, we learn to reject parts of ourselves because those around us, whatever, deem it ungood, bad, or whatever. It's something that we shouldn't have. It's that good bad dichotomy where it's like, these qualities are good, these qualities are bad. And we know that for a lot of those things, they vary between cultures and families. And so, depending on how we were raised, we may have learned to reject our sexuality. For a lot of women, we were taught to reject our sexual impulses, our sexuality, our femininity. Being feminine means you're weak or vulnerable. Being sexual means you're a slut, and for a lot of women, being sexual is very unsafe. So these parts of ourselves get rejected and we push them down into the shadow. So a shadow self is a part of yourself that you were taught to reject at some point. You did this out of protection for yourself. The intention behind this rejection was good. It was for safety. But what happens is we hide these parts from ourselves. We put them into the shadow. We don't want to look at them. We're afraid of them. We're ashamed of them. All of that. But what happens is this leaks our energy. It leaks our power. And so if you are on a path where you're trying to come more into your power, you're trying to get out of victim mode, you're trying to clear up your energy and be more effective and present in your life because you have this one life and you want it to be the best it can be, and being in your power is how you do that. So with the shadow, we spend a lot of energy resisting it and rejecting it. There's a lot of tension between those parts of ourselves because the shadow self wants to be with us, wants to be a part of us, and we are not allowing it. But we can never just delete parts of ourselves. That's not how this works. The goal is wholeness. The goal is wholeness, an integrated whole self. This isn't, you don't get to just chop off parts of yourself. You know, your body has all the pieces that it does for a reason. You know, this is the complete wholeness. You aren't a finger or an eyeball, you are all of this. So that's an important part when doing shadow work is you are not that shadow aspect. That shadow aspect is a part of you that makes up the whole that is you. So when we're in tension, in resistance to our shadow self, we waste a lot of energy. You can imagine it as having something expanding in a container and you're trying to push down on the lid and you're just holding that all the time. All the time you are spending energy pushing down your shadow self all the time. So this can be very exhausting and it can get really frustrating. So something I teach in self-love school is how to integrate the shadow, because I see this as one of the most important things. And I think a lot of things are important. But shadow self-integration is super, super important to get your energy back and to get your power back. And so an example of this is today I did a shadow meditation because my guides instructed me to do so. And the part of myself I met today was the sadistic aspect of myself. So not all shadow selves are the same. You have hundreds, thousands of shadow selves, and they integrate when they're ready. This is another thing, you can't really force it. So, you know, when you're ready, you start doing it. Especially in the beginning, you probably will do a lot more shadow integration, and then you'll just do it when you need to. But my self that I met today, my shadow self that I met today, was the sadistic aspect of self. So I'm facing this part of myself who genuinely what she wants is to hurt people. And you know, that is an aspect of myself. A lot of people have that aspect of their self. They have a part of them that is evil, that wants to hurt. We are humans. That is part of who we are. And so when I met this self, you know, I was talking with her, trying to learn more about her and how I can get her back in integrated. And in the end, it wasn't like, you know, I don't identify as a sadist. I don't actually feel pleasure from hurting people, but part of me does. And so instead of being like, okay, this is who I am now, I guess I'm a sadist now. Instead, it was like, well, I'm just not going to ignore you and pretend you're not there anymore. And that sufficed. Nothing likes to be ignored, especially aspects of yourself. And so just being able to communicate with this part of myself that I will no longer ignore you, I will accept that you are there, no matter how uncomfortable it makes me, I will accept your existence. And, you know, you can get creative if you feel like there is a way, you know, with sadism, for example, people do have outlets for that energy. People do have outlets for that energy, and I think that's important. And I also think it's important for humans in general to admit to themselves that you do have dark corners of your psyche. Everyone does. You know, I am a light worker, but I have a dark shadow. That is how it works. We are this full spectrum, this full range. The part of me that is super, super light is matched by a part of me that is super, super dark. And I accept both parts. I accept that I am a compassionate, loving light being. And I also accept that I have dark shadows and rage and wrath and intense emotions. And if I don't deny those, if I don't reject them, if I allow them to be a part of who I am, then I have more control over those parts of myself. If I reject them, what happens is they will find a way to be seen and heard in your life. And this is where self-sabotage comes. So this part of me that wants to hurt people is going to find a way to hurt people, even if I'm consciously not trying to. And so it'll find a way. And this is something that definitely was showing itself in relationships. And that is something that I want to have more control over that. I want to be able to oversee that part of myself, know it, understand it, and when it comes up, I am aware of what's going on. I take the power of that part of myself and bring it back into my hands. I am taking back that power. I'm taking back that part of myself. And now I also am spending less energy rejecting this part of myself. So, like, a sadistic shadow is pretty dark. That was definitely a really big integration for me today. That wasn't something that was super, like, I'm talking about it casually, but that was a very intense experience. Other shadows can be like, I had an aspect of myself that was like a martyr, was all about being in solitude and being alone. And that doesn't serve me to be completely alone and in solitude and a martyr attitude, but that is part of my being. And so I needed to accept that and integrate it and own that part of myself and bring it back into my reality. And now it's like I can speak to these parts of myself and I can understand them and I can hear them. And when I hear them, I give them a space to be, and they won't act out anymore. And I also don't have to be holding them down. They are just part of who I am. So shadow work is really amazing work. And this is something I teach in my school that opens April 13th. So send me a message if you are really interested in diving more into this personal integration to wholeness journey.